Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2213. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm back across the pond. I tend to be in the UK a lot, especially this past year, but that's okay. There are a lot of interesting people there, and I'm with a very special guest by the name of David Twohig. David, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I'm in gear, ready to go, Mark.
All right, we'll have some fun. Now, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time. I know you've been traveling between France and the UK. You are a busy guy. But before I give you a proper introduction and we talk about your very interesting career in your life, I'd love for you to share one little thing, David, that most people might not know about you.
Well, you know, Mark, my friends know I'm pretty crazy about bikes. I mean, push bikes and pedal bicycles. But what a lot of folks don't know is that I used to actually race them as a young guy when I was in my teens into my 20s. I used to actually race, road bikes, real kind of Tour de France stuff. It was,
Oh, wow.
I grew up in Ireland in the 80s and it was very popular over there. So yeah, I have been known to don a pair of spandex lycra shorts, but let's keep that between us, okay?
Okay. Well, that sounds like fun. I did a lot of bicycle riding as a kid and would go on some pretty long rides. I think one of the longest one-day rides I did was about 86 miles down in Mexico. There was a ride down there that was quite fun, that you would ride from the central part of Baja out to the coast. And the first time I did it with a bunch of friends on Schwinn Stingrays,
Ooh.
which was a very bad selection of bicycle. I have to tell you that.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of crazy. My legs were a little worn out by the time I got there. Now I think we were in junior high at the time. So, I was a 14-year-old teenager, so you could do anything. But I remember coming home in the back of a pickup truck and my legs kept cramping because I was having to sit cross-legged and that's no fun at all. So the next year I did it on a 10-speed and it was much easier, that's for sure. So well, let me give you a proper introduction. David Twohig is a consultant who works on a variety of topics for his clients. He speaks at private and public events and writes about the car industry for The-Intercooler in the UK. He published his first book in early 2022 titled Inside the Machine, An Engineer's Tale of the Modern Automotive Industry. David's a veteran automotive engineering executive with 3 decades of international experience in automotive design and development. He headed the future automotive team at Waymo and was chief technology officer and chief vehicle engineer at Byton. And before that, he was chief engineer at Alpine, head of vehicle engineering at Renault Sport. That sounds like fun. But prior to that, he led the engineering team responsible for the Renault Zoe, one of Europe's best-selling BEVs. David has also worked at Nissan in the UK and Japan. He gets around a little bit. We'll be back in just a moment to learn more about David, but first a word from our sponsors. So please give them a little love. They keep the fuel in the tanks here, the petrol, I guess, since we're in the UK, and we'll be right back. Autumn has arrived, the weather's changing, and that means your vehicles need extra protection against everything Mother Nature can drop. Covercraft offers you a multitude of layers of protection for your special rides. Are you putting your summer toys away, watercraft, RV, motorcycles, trailers, or even your patio furniture? Covercraft has a custom fit cover for whatever your need. Covercraft offers you 10 different car cover options. That's right, 10 for your special vehicle's protection, whether stored inside or out. All carefully crafted into the form and fit with the quality and attention to detail that's been their standard since 1965. And don't forget their custom fit seat covers, pet pad. Fido's going to get wet and muddy, I guarantee it. Dash mats, sunscreens, and custom fit floor mats and trunk mats. Whatever the surface you want to protect, Covercraft has your solution. If you use the code YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Simply use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Come on, Mother Nature, bring it on. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. I was tired of my rates for my collector car insurance going up every year for no explainable reason. My carrier seemed to be turning into a media company versus an insurance company, and I realized that a portion of my policy premium was paying for all those so-called free media goodies. So I did my homework, I talked to knowledgeable collectors, shopped around, and discovered American Collectors Insurance. They've been serving the collector car hobby since 1976. You last that long by properly serving your customers' insurance need, not with a lot of fluff. ACI is ranked the #1 online collector car insurance provider according to Google, Trustpilot, Facebook, and they offer their real person guarantee live support. No never-ending phone loops when you need help. Plus, because you don't use your classic car as a daily driver, you could save up to 40% compared to regular auto insurance. American Collectors Insurance provides agreed value policies. So if you experience a total loss to your collector vehicle or it's stolen, you'll be paid the amount listed on your declaration page, less any deductibles, of course. No ifs, ands, or buts. Give them a call today and ask for your free quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of mine, Mark Greens at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. Fall is here, and you know what that means. Time to put a good coat of protection on your vehicle. I'm teamed up with Auto Geek, and they've been the leading source of auto detailing products, accessories, and expert knowledge for more than 20 years. What started back in 1997 as a small mail-order catalog company grew into a multi-website-based e-commerce store, and that's what they are today. With a large online presence on its own website featuring close to 100 different brands, AutoGeek has grown to be the largest car care retailer in the country. AutoGeek's wholesale program serves accounts in over 30 countries, and its retail sector ships worldwide. If you want to protect your vehicle this fall, and you should, go to autogeek.net for the best product selection on the internet today and technical support. Autogeek.net is where I go for my detailing needs. That's autogeek.net. So, David, we are back. Now, you have quite an interesting background. I'd love for you to chat a little bit before we get into this book, because that's why I wanted to talk to you today about this background, because you have worked with so many different companies doing so many different things, and you tend to still do that today as a consultant. How on earth did this career start? And tell us a little bit about some of the adventures.
Yeah, sure, Mark. I'm a bit depressed listening to your intro, because, you described me as a veteran automotive engineer. The depressing thing is I actually remember when I was a young gun coming up through the ranks, but it seems to be a long time ago now.
Yes. Yeah, that's for both of us, my friend.
So listen, to answer your question, to be honest, I had a pretty traditional career. I was really lucky to join Nissan straight out of university. I did my studies in electronic engineering, and I was lucky enough to be recruited into Nissan when Nissan were setting up engineering and manufacturing in Europe. And I stayed with Nissan for a long time, 13 years. Really lucky as well to live for a couple of years in Japan. And then, if you'll remember, there was a certain guy called Carlos Ghosn that came along and made the links between Renault and Nissan. So I got a chance to transfer across to Renault, move to France, learn another language, etc. So I was really with the same company, basically the Nissan Renault Alliance, for, would you believe, 26 years, a long time.
Wow.
And one day I was there thinking, okay, I'm a lifer. I'm going to see this all the way. But I got a chance to go to California, join an EV startup, which we already mentioned, Byton. We might come back to that later. And, kind of have a go at the crazy EV startup life in California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I said, hey, I got to give this a go. And that opened the doors towards other companies. We mentioned Waymo, so I've been lucky enough to work a little bit on autonomous vehicles. And now, as you say, I'm a freelance engineer. My official title is consultant, but Mark, consultant sounds so kind of pompous. I prefer to think of myself as I'm an engineering gun for hire. If you remember the movie with Clint Eastwood, High Plains Drifter, remember that movie?
Yeah.
I like to think of myself as, I'm the Clint Eastwood of the automotive engineering, coming in to help out the good guys and hopefully run the bad guys out of town. That's what I like to dream. My life is actually probably a lot more boring than that.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. Do you wear one of those metal plates under your coverall, so if anybody shoots at you, you're going to survive? I love that movie. His whole spaghetti western series is quite wonderful. One of the things that I was warned about, and this is kind of a fun one, but it makes me or begs me to ask you the question. I was warned not to ask you about lightweight vehicles and the benefits of small wheels and tires because it might end up being a 3-hour show. I know your buddy and my friend Ben Headley, who introduced me to you, this little car company. They make vehicles with small little tires, but why should I not be asking you this question?
Just do not ask me, Mark, because you would be inviting me to get up on my hobby horse and just talk about these topics forever. So I'm a big believer in lightweight vehicles. I'm extremely frustrated as an engineer that cars are getting bigger, heavier, wider, longer, year on year. And I plead guilty. I'm part of the generation of automotive engineers that allow that to happen. I think at some stage we need to work that back, working on more efficient, smaller, lighter vehicles. And one of the evils of that are just the way wheel sizes have grown and grown. Now, big wheels, big rims, they look cool on some vehicles, but for most vehicles, they're actually not only do they not add to the performance of the car, but they actually detract from it. So these are two of my kind of personal crusades, are to drive towards smaller, lighter, more efficient vehicles and smaller wheel and tire packages.
I like the whole concept here because I'm a European sports car fan. I love Porsches and BMWs. I had many M3s, lots of 911s. And I just sold a car this year, a 1987 930 Porsche Turbo. And I was invited before COVID, to take that car to a Porsche dealership because they were launching the new Porsche 911. And I pulled it into their showroom there and parked my car next to the new 911. And I stood back and I went, oh my gosh, what's happened to the 911? It's kind of like the U.S. diets over here. We've all gotten a little too big. And I was kind of shocked because I'd been around all these cars, but I didn't realize how far we'd come. And then, of course, when you get on a roadway in a small sports car and you're surrounded by these giant SUVs, which here in the States, everyone drives an SUV. We have one in our garage. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I want to stay on this topic for just a minute because you got me intrigued. Because these big wheels and tires look cool, but you're going to, hopefully share a little bit of benefit of smaller wheels and tires, but will that work on a bigger car? Because that's going to look kind of funny.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we of course have to take design into account. The looks of the car. All right, we can't put a set of tiny 14-inch wheels on a larger vehicle. That's okay. But if we can constrain or control the overall dimensions of the vehicle, smaller, particularly wheels as opposed to tires, they have so many benefits. If we can reduce the rim size, it means we bring back a little bit of sidewall. That sidewall has a really important part to play in ride quality. It is an important part to play in reducing the vehicle mass. We get so many benefits. And Mark, I warned you not to get me started, sir. But
I know I'm stepping into this trap, aren't I?
One of the things that I'm a big believer in is modern vehicles. We've forgotten what good ride quality feels like.
Yes.
And slightly older vehicles where we had more of a sidewall, a little bit more of a compliant ride, they had such an excellent ride. And I wish we could share better ride quality with more customers these days. But just to pick up on what you said, because you're talking to a fellow 911 fan also. My weekend car is a 1980 SC.
I understand.
And you're
that.
100%. You're 100% right, sir. That narrow G-body 911, when you drive it, especially on a lot of our roads in Europe are narrower than you guys' roads over there. Not only can you safely drive the car sticking to your side of the road, but you can actually position it within your lane. You can take a nice line. You don't have to worry, am I hanging over the white line? Am I going to get in trouble with a motorcycle or a car coming the other way?
Or a bicycle.
It's such a benefit. Or a bicycle. So yeah, Mark, you got to stop me because we'll blow away the entire time of the podcast on this topic.
Okay, well, I had to ask because somebody told me not to. So there you go. I think we could have a much longer conversation about this thing. And I'm going to stay on this topic for 1 second because I have to ask, do you think with the onset and the proliferation of EV vehicles, there is an opportunity to get to smaller wheel tire sizes? Do you think there's a benefit there since now we're going to have less stuff in the vehicle, lower weight, although batteries are kind of heavy?
I think there is because two other benefits of smaller wheels with more of a sidewall are specifically relevant to EVs. And one is less rolling resistance. So if you have a slightly more flexible sidewall, you're using less energy in deforming that carcass. And also it makes it easier to achieve higher load ratings for EVs. Because you're right, even though we're carrying less stuff in it, the battery weight actually means we need higher load indices on the tires. And that works better with smaller wheels and tires. So yeah, I do think EVs will help us reverse the trend a little bit towards these oversized boots that we've been putting on cars in the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years.
Or rubber bands, as I call them. I do love the big sidewalls, and we're going to talk about your SC a little bit later because I love the old G bodies. I've had several of those cars, and it was hard for me to let the turbo go. Of course, that was a wider body because of the turbo concept, but the SCs have just a delightful power plant that I love. Oh, I love the sound.
Yes.
Yeah, everything's awesome. So we'll get back to that in a moment. But I want to dive into Inside the Machine, an engineer's tale of the modern automotive industry. This is a very intriguing book to me. Why did you write this book? And maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the chapters and what you touch on.
Yeah, Mark, that really, I gotta credit this to my wife, Colleen, because I'm one of those boring guys that for years has been saying, one of these days, I know so many tales from the car industry, I'm just going to write them down. And the year before last, we moved back from California to France, and I had a little bit of time on my hands, and my wife said, okay, would you please shut up talking about writing this damn book and just get on with it? So she locked me in the spare bedroom. I fired up my computer and got it done. So that's the story. It was kind of bubbling within me for many years, and I thought, okay, I just got to write this and shut up talking about it.
So what are some of the things that you talk about in this book, and why should my listeners, I know why, because it's an awesome book, but why should they get their hands on this and learn a little bit about the automotive industry? Because I believe what you've done here is you bring out some reality, some fun tales, some things about the industry that most of us probably have no idea happen.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about really were all my friends, family, car folks. We all have them. All of my friends are into cars in one way or another. But even people who are quite enthusiastic about cars, they don't really have a good picture of where they come from, how they come into being. And then when you ask someone, how do you think cars are created? The first image that springs into their mind is the image of the designer or the stylist, right? The guy who does the clay models, the artistic side of the business. Usually people have some image about that, but they don't really know what is the work of the engineers, the manufacturing people, the kind of grubby fingernail side of the business. So I thought, look, I'll try and write a book that explains that a little bit with enough technical content that it's going to appeal to the geeks, the gearheads, but not too much tech, so it's going to turn off the general reader. So really, that was it. It's for anyone who's curious about the car industry and just wants to know a little bit more about where do these things come from. That was the inspiration, and hopefully it's hit the mark. It's a relatively short read. It's about 200 pages. It's true that it kind of concentrates a lot on European products. Most of the action takes place in Europe, a little bit in Japan, not so much in North America. But I'd encourage your readers, pick it up, have a look through it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
I think they will. Now, I like to ask my guests about what I call our driving inspirations. You've been around most likely some incredible people that have been very influential, very much a mentor perhaps, and a driver, excuse the pun, in your career. Is there somebody that you'd like to maybe talk about a little bit that really helped you along the way?
Mark, I'm gonna be super boring here, and I'm sure I'm not the first of your 2,000 plus guests who's going to say this, but it's actually, I got to say, it's my dad.
Awesome.
My dad's passed away a few years ago, but he was he had gasoline, or petrol as we'd say, in his veins. My dad wasn't an engineer. He was a Ford guy through and through. He worked on the production line in Ford. He was very, very proud of having served his time on the line in Ford back in the day when it was a tough job and a tough company. He wore the blue oval on his sleeve all his life. He didn't get a chance, typical of his generation, to go to school, go to university, get the education required to be an engineer. And he regretted that. He had to go out and make a living as a young guy, as his generation had to. And I remember, my childhood was under old Fords, fixing them with my dad, passing him the wrenches, him explaining to me what the bits of a car were. And he encouraged me to go as far as I could, gave me the opportunity to go to school, etc. So, yeah, my dad would be the inspiration all the way through, and right through to the present day.
I love it. I love it. We're going to take a short break. We come back. I want to talk about maybe one. I'm no doubt you face a lot of challenges because you've worked on so many projects in so many capacities, but I want to touch on one that taught you a great lesson. So keep that thought in mind. Keep the seatbelts on, and we'll be right back. You've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine here on Cars Yeah for a couple of years now. Well, they're growing. And in 2023, they're going to grow from 4 issues a year to 6. And there's an opportunity here for you to take advantage of this growth. If you go to linkagemag.com and click on the Renew button, if you already subscribe, you can get a great deal. Use the code RENEW6 for 1 year and you'll get 6 issues for the price of 4, or type in Renew 12 for 2 years, where you also have a great savings. Plus, they'll even throw in a free Linkage hat. How cool is that? The publisher of Linkage is Donald Osborne. He's been a guest multiple times here on Cars Yeah. He's become a good friend of mine, and I'll tell you, Linkage Magazine is one of those newer magazines that you're going to want to get. It's all about experiences, opinions, and values. It's a wonderful publication, something I look forward to getting. And now that I'm going to be getting 6 a year, even more special. So go to linkagemag.com. Again, use the code RENEW6 or RENEW12 to get that special deal. Do it before December 31st, 2022, so that in 2023, you'll get 6 issues of Linkage Magazine instead of 4. 20, 50, or 100 years from now, will there be a workforce to care for the collector vehicles we love? With auto shop programs disappearing across the country, it's a question we enthusiasts have to ask. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these vehicles aren't lost to time. One of the many ways RPM, which is short for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, is accomplishing this goal is through workforce development initiatives. The RPM Apprenticeship Program enables the next generation of artisans to earn a living while they learn the craft of restoring and preserving these vehicles directly from industry professionals. The Endangered Skills Program documents the process of masters training future craftspeople on a variety of critical skills in danger of being lost forever. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of the collector vehicle skills trade, visit RPM Foundation today. They're one of the charities of choice here on Cars Yeah. So, David, I always ask my guests what I call as the challenge question. I would love for you to share a great challenge, maybe even a big failure along the way in your life. But more importantly, what did that teach you so that looking back, you went, I'm kind of glad I had to go through that because it taught me a really valuable lesson.
Yeah, Mark, I'm going to go with the failure option. I'm going to go with the car or the challenge, the business challenge that, if you'll allow me if you'll allow me in French, the challenge that kicked my ass.
Okay, yes.
This one was one that defeated me, but like you said, I think I learned more through, not succeeding than I might have if we'd pulled it through. And it's the company you already mentioned in the intro. It's Byton. So yeah, a really fascinating company. So I can tell you a little bit that story, and it's a story of failure.
Yeah, please do. I love failures because that's how we learn. They don't feel very good at the time, but that's the key with this question is looking back, you can say, well, okay, I didn't like it too much, but it was valuable.
Exactly. Tom, it taught me humility. And so listen, without boring you and our listeners too much with the detail, I mentioned I was working for Renault Nissan based in Europe, being a sensible guy, company guy, ready to draw my pension. And I got headhunted basically to come to California and join this new startup called Byton. Now, this was back in around 2017. If you remember, there was quite a wave of EV startups. Mm-hmm. Some of them jointly funded between U.S. investors and Chinese investors, and Byton was one of those. Right, there was a crop of companies at the time. It's a cliche that I don't use too often, but I'll just use it to make things clear. Basically inspired by Tesla, trying to be the next Tesla. And a couple of them I've got across the line since then. I'm glad to say, companies like Rivian and Lucid, but Byton was one of those that was trying to pull off the almost impossible trick of creating a new car company. And I was hired as chief vehicle engineer and later on chief technical officer. And we were trying to build it from scratch. We were developing this new all-electric SUV, mainly aimed at the Chinese market, but also with ambitions to sell it in the States. very interesting vehicle technically, and also I think with some very cool features and very, it was an interesting product. But basically, we didn't manage to beat the statistic that 90% of startups failed. We were one of that 90%. And it was a tough experience. I learned a lot. I worked with some great people. We didn't manage to pull it off, but I'm super glad that I gave it a shot and gave it my best shot.
When I look at companies, and you mentioned a few there, and we go back, of course, to Tesla, of which they've come. And if anyone, most people think Tesla's just been around forever, always been a success, but you can go way back to the beginning. I saw the first Teslas that were on the lawn, the upper lawn at the Pebble Beach Concours decade ago, plus a couple decades ago. And this company that was trying to put electric vehicles in little Lotus cars. And this is a huge, huge battle. I've had a lot of people on the show here that are trying to do the same thing. If there was one thing that you could pull out of that experience of why that didn't succeed, I have a feeling I know what it is, but maybe. What would you say that it would be?
Great question, Mark. And I would say simply, and obviously it's an oversimplification, building a new company is really difficult. There's lots of pitfalls, but I would say, it's not enough to have a great product. It's not enough to have recruited, great engineers, passionate folks who are going to work, all the hours that God sends. It's not enough to have the team spirit. It's not enough to have the passion. You need to back that up with a solid, basically, cash flow. It's as simple as that. You need to have the financial side of things, be that investment or be that clear revenue stream. You need to have that as squared away as the engineering. Brilliant engineering by itself is not enough. You need the excellent business people, excellent fundraisers working alongside. And that's where we went wrong. We made the classic startup error of simply running out of cash.
When you go back and read stories about people that have become super successful, Howard Schultz, with Starbucks, even Microsoft, others that, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, how many times did he almost just have to, cash it in? Because it's the same story over and over. They have to go raise cash. And there's a great book about Howard Schultz where he went into a meeting where he really thought, this is the end. It's all going to come to an end in this meeting. I'm not going to be able to pull this off. I need more money. I need more money. Same with Jeff Bezos. That is the key. It's the same in automobile racing too, right? It's always cash.
For sure. And, Mark, we touched on it, but, folks may love or may not love Tesla. That's it. We could have a whole debate on that as well. But I got to take my hat off to the company. They were the first new car company to come around for many, many decades. And I tip my hat again to anyone who's got the courage to try and have a shot at building a car, be it Rivian, be it Lucid, be it Faraday Future, be it anyone who's got the courage to say, okay, I'm going to have a swing at this, knowing how difficult it is. I admire anyone who has a shot at it, and I wish them the best of luck.
Well, and at every level, I mentioned our buddy Ben Headley and the little car company. Same thing. Who would take that risk? Well, Ben would. It's people like Ben and others, the Elon Musk of the world, the Steve Jobs of the world, all the people that take those challenges. Yeah, it's a repeated story. So there you go. Let's talk about special vehicles in your life. And we mentioned this earlier, 1980 Porsche 911 SC, which is near and dear to your heart. Is that your special vehicle story?
It is indeed. Well, I'm going to give you two. That's my personal special vehicle. I am that guy that had a poster of a 911 on his bedroom wall when I was a kid. And I've always been Yep. I had a 930. I had your car on my bedroom wall.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
But that's my weekend car. I love it to bits. And, I don't feel I need to talk to you, Mark, about how great 911s are. We'll bore our listeners. But I'm actually going to, I'm going to nominate another car as my special vehicle, which is, you already mentioned it in the intro. So it's the Alpine A110.
Yeah.
I'm always a little reluctant to talk about it to you folks because I'm so conscious that it's not for sale in North America. And I still get hate mail to the present day from Alpine enthusiasts on that side of the pond who are saying, Dave, why can we not buy this car over here? But
I know.
I know. But I had the great honor of being the chief vehicle engineer for that vehicle.
Wow.
I'm super proud of it. It's my daughter in automotive terms. And I'm I'm embarrassingly proud about that car.
So when you were working on that car, what years are we talking about?
So the car was launched in 2017, and I was working on the car about 4 years before that. So as you know, the gestation of a car is somewhere around 4 to 5 years. So we're talking about roughly 2014 to 2018 in those years.
When you think about that car, what is it that tugs on your heartstrings so hard, other than the fact that you worked on it? Because that adds entirely, just an inclusive element. But what is it about that vehicle? Because even for people over on this side of the pond that can't get their hands on those, it stands out. Is it because of the history and the lineage of where it goes back to the old rally racers?
Yeah, it's partly, and I'm Irish originally, but I'm also French. I've got dual nationality, so I can understand a little bit of the French psyche here. So the Alpine A110 is to France what the Porsche 911 is to Germany. It's such an emotive icon for French people. There's so much history involved in it. It's part of the, it's like the Ford Mustang, of France. So that's part of it. There's also the technical aspects of the car. I'm really proud specifically of its low mass. We come back again to lightweight vehicles and agility. But the real reason, Mark, is not that. The real reason is when I look at that car, I think of the team I led. So when I look at the car and I see the rear tail lights, for example, I remember the guy who designed them. I know that every part in that car is a person to me. I know the hard nights we had, the stand-up fights we had, the parties we had, the trouble we had. So when I look at the car, I don't see a car. I see a bunch of people who created that car, and I know them all. We worked together. We were a band of brothers building on that car. So the car represents a bunch of people for me.
Well, gee, this is where we always end up back here at Cars Yeah, is the people. And when I see that newer version you guys worked on, it takes me back to the 70s cars and that look and see it. Are there any of the newer style that you worked on here in the U.S.? Can they even be driven here at this point? Or is it one of those off-limit vehicles for us over here that they seem to always pile on us?
I'm afraid it's one of those sad vehicles where it isn't compliant with FMVSS regulations, so you can't drive it in the States. Now, I happen to know there are a couple of wealthy collectors who've bought them simply as, static show objects, which I admire, but it's a damn shame. That car is designed to be driven.
Yeah, well, it's like when the 959 came out and you couldn't get those over here, and there was a couple guys that brought them over, and some got caught and they got confiscated. When I was in high school, I was working for a Danish man who tried to sneak you'll know this car, Matra Simca Bagheera, I believe they call it.
Yes.
The 3-seater? Yeah. He tried to sneak it into the country in a container full of Danish teak furniture. And he got caught. I was there when he got caught. I was a high school kid working at summer job delivering furniture for him. And I went down to the shipping docks and to pick up some of the furniture in a truck. And when they opened that, the security guys were there, and the guy looked down and he goes, "What's that?" Well, some of the coolant had leaked out and was running out of the trailer. Looked very much like coolant. And I went, "I don't know what that is." I knew what it was, but I didn't know. And I didn't know there was a car in that trailer. They made us empty that trailer, and hidden in the back was a yellow Matra. And they ended up taking that car and crushing it. I'd never seen one before. And they, of course, they're looking at me. I'm just a little kid going, I don't know. I'm just a high school kid. I just came down here to pick up furniture. But yeah, he got caught, and they confiscated that car, and it went to the crusher, sadly. So that was my Matra story. So kind of interesting. So I'm going to be a car psychologist. I have a degree in that. It's hanging on a wall somewhere around here. I don't know where it is, though. If you were manifest or reincarnated as a vehicle, David, this isn't what you want to be, though. This is how you got to dig deep into your engineering background. What would you be and why?
This required a little bit of digging. So I mentioned I started my career with Nissan. And I'm still a big Nissan guy also. So I'm gonna be, Mark, and this is a very niche vehicle. It's your younger listeners won't know what this is, but I think I'm a Nissan Sentra SER.
Ah,
which you might remember was the
yep.
slightly hot version of the Sentra that Nissan sold in the 90s and up in the early 2000s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, kind of little. I don't know. I'm trying to. Was that car a hatchback or did it have a trunk? I'm trying to remember.
It had a trunk,
A
and
trunk.
there was a hatchback version in Japan, but in the States, it always had a trunk.
Okay, okay. Maybe that's where I came from. I had a friend that was from Japan, and he would always share. There was a Japanese car book. I think it was called two initials, GR or something, or SR. It was a Japanese magazine that had a lot of car stuff in it. And actually, decades ago, my wife and I were featured in that as a little story about art. They came over here to
Huh.
the U.S. and they came to my garage and took pictures of the garage and my cars. Because in Japan, of course, the garages are tiny, tiny. And over here, we have a big 3-car garage. And so they think they think everybody in the U.S. has giant garages. So, yeah. But that's where that car stuck in my mind because I used to get that magazine and see a lot of cars that I've never seen before that were only in Japan. So, very cool. Well, that makes sense to me. Well, of course, we always ask about great books. We're going to promote this book again, Inside the Machine by my guest today, David Twohig. I'll put a link to that so that you listeners can get your hands on it. I encourage you to get a copy of this book because if you're into cars, if you're listening to cars, yeah, you are, you're going to like it. So, David, I'm going to take you on the ultimate drive today. I'm going to park any car you'd like in your garage. You can take it anywhere for a drive. And here's the key. You can take anyone with you, even somebody who's no longer with us. So what does the ultimate drive look like for you since I'm writing the check?
Oh man, this is a tough one, Mark. I had so many options here.
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
was thinking Porsche 917. I was dreaming the Le
Ooh,
Mans circuit. I was
ooh.
going back to pre-war Bentley blowers. This was so hard. But what I'm gonna ask you to magic up for me, first of all, I know this sounds a bit selfish, but I'm gonna be alone.
Okay,
And
that's okay.
the reason I'm gonna be alone is I actually drive better when I'm by myself. I'm not worrying about the passenger if they're feeling okay, if they're feeling sick, if they're scared or whatever. And I think if I'm alone, I can really soak up the car and the environment. I know that sounds a little bit
Now,
selfish.
I get it
Um,
because when I'm driving, I drive my wife crazy. She calls me LMM, last minute Mark. And I go, why do you call me that? And she goes, because you always wait till last minute to exit. You always try to see how many cars you can pass. And yeah, she's always grabbing the door handle. So I get it. I understand, David.
and what I'm going to go for the car and the place. So the car, I'm going to go for a Lancia Stratos. So
Oh,
the
nice.
iconic 70s rally car that's like always for me, it's at night on a rally stage in the snow with that ripping exhaust sound. So it's going to be a Lancia Stratos and it's going to be on my favorite road, which is in sunny California. It's the Highway 84 that goes from La Honda right up there on the skyline and goes right down to the Pacific coast. It's this beautiful ribbon of tarmac going through the redwoods, and I have such great memories of that road on motorcycles, cars, and my old Porsche 911. So yeah, it's a Lancia Stratos on Highway 84 with a full tank of petrol, please.
Nice choice. Yeah, that's cool. I know that road because I bought a Beck Spider. You know who Chuck Beck is?
Mm.
Yeah, it was a car that John Wilhoit, who restores old Porsches, he built for a client using a Beck chassis and body, but he built it with all Porsche parts, including the engine. And my son, when he was 8 years old, and I drove that car from Long Beach back to Gig Harbor, 1,500-mile drive, and we cut over and did that drive because I know of it
Oh
so
man.
well. So yeah, it was in a little Beck Spider with no top, no heater, no radio, and you picked a nice roadway. That is a wonderful roadway. That was a wonderful trip. We spent 5 days doing that. I still have great memories of that. It was super fun. All right, I'll get shopping on that Lancia Stratos. That's going to cost me a bloody fortune, but that's okay. For you, I'm happy to do that. David, you've taken us on a wonderful drive today, and I can't thank you enough for stopping and taking a little pit stop with me today on your travels over there in the UK. Before I let you go, though, could you share maybe some words of inspiration or success quote or mantra?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave you folks with two, hopefully,
Awesome.
Mark. The first one, I'm just gonna steal this, and this comes from I'm speaking to you guys from the UK, so I think I need to steal a quote or a mantra from Winston Churchill. And as you
Yes.
know, Churchill had so many great quotes, but my favorite one, which I think is very applicable to the car industry, is the following: Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Yes.
And I think that's really useful one to us in the car industry. But and to leave you with kind of my own thoughts, especially for my colleagues in the industry, because it's sometimes tough. It's a tough business. It's not always easy, and times are tough right now. And I just think, I know this podcast is going to go out at or around Thanksgiving, and I just want to remind us all, we are so lucky, and we should give thanks that we work in an industry where we get to play with cars and we get paid for that. So I just want to remind all my colleagues, when things get tough and you have a hard day in the office, just remember this is a great industry. And we're just playing with cars, and we're so lucky to do that.
You said it really well. And of course, this show is airing on Thanksgiving. And I definitely want to give thanks to you, David, and all the incredible, inspiring automotive enthusiasts who've taken time out of their busy schedules to be guests here and share their inspiration with everyone. I hope everyone listening today is with family, friends, taking some time off to relax, give gratitude, and be thankful for whatever you have, whether it's great and grand or small and meager. We're all fortunate to have what we have. So thank you for those great words. How do people follow you? Is maybe a LinkedIn connection, or is there a way for people to keep up with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky, Mark, because my family name is pretty unusual, Twohig.
Yes.
So you can find me under that handle on LinkedIn. I do a fair bit on Twitter as well. And also, I'll do a little plug for The-Intercooler. So that's www.The-Intercooler.com. Check it out. I'm one of the contributors, but there's some great automotive writing on there and a wide range of topics. So you can find me at any of those places.
Absolutely. And a big shout out to our buddy Ben Headley from the Little Car Company for connecting David and I today. David, thank you so much for taking time and spending with us today. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.